Brought to you by JMR Rentals, professional digital cinema and broadcast equipment rentals in Brooklyn, New York. JMRNY.com. Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend. I'm Jason Godbey, and joining me via Zoom today, she is the executive producer and star of the new indie film Balloon Animal, Miss Katherine Waddell. Welcome, Katherine.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, we appreciate you doing this. You're in town for Brooklyn Film Festival, which
Mhm.
is where we learned about the movie. We covered Brooklyn Film. I'm sorry we couldn't catch you on the red carpet, but this is actually nice as well.
Yeah.
So we get to talk a little bit longer. And I do want to hear about the film, but first I want to talk to you about you. So, how did you get into the old show business game? What is your origin story?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, my origin story goes way back when I was in fourth grade and I was in my very first musical ever, which was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And I was cast as Mrs. Bucket. And it's kind of been a no-brainer for me since then. I kind of, fell in love with theater at first, which I feel like so many of us do, and sort of went from there.
So, tell me a bit about Balloon Animal. Kind of give me a little bit about the story, and then can you tell me kind of how it came to be?
So, Balloon Animal is a story about a young woman named Poppy Valentine, who I play in the film, who has grown up in her family's traveling circus, and her main gig is pretty much making balloon animals. And she's sort of at this crossroads in her life where she is trying to decide if she should stay with her family at the circus or if she should strike out on her own and sort of settle down and start her own life. And for me, it started a couple of years ago. My business partner and I, M. Johnson, who wrote and directed the film, we had been working on a couple of projects for a couple of years at that point. So we were really good working partners at this point, and we were sort of struggling to get work. This business is very cutthroat and it's very hard to get hired sometimes. And we kept sort of going to these film festivals and workshops that were giving us the advice of, oh, you should make your own content, make your own stuff. And so I said, okay, well, what does that world look like? What would I do? And I came up with this visual as an actor that I thought would be interesting. And that was a girl with blue hair who makes balloon animals in a traveling circus. And I went to M and I was like, we should make a feature film together. And at first she was like, oh no, I don't know. I don't know what to kind of do with that visual. Like it's, pretty simple. But a couple of months later, she came back to me and she was like, I'm not doing anything right now. How about we take a stab at it? And that's, she started writing and we started editing together and workshopping the story. And that's how it came to be.
The circus thing is interesting. Did you was that inspired by anything? Like, did you grow up in a home full of carnies or something, or like how did you get come to? I mean, because she could have made balloon animals on the street or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
So the original idea, where the original visual came from, was from my very first job ever. I worked at Gators Dockside in Orlando, Florida, which is a wing house. And like every Friday, we used to have balloon animal artists come and make these very amazing balloon animals. So we actually at the very beginning workshopped, this initial idea in many different ways. And we had her working at a restaurant making balloon animals. We had her, you know, at the traveling circus. And we just kind of wanted to go with something we had never seen before. So when we see circuses in film, it's always tends to be very beautiful and tends to be very, magnificent, larger than life, very wanderlusty. If you think of The Greatest Showman, Water for Elephants. And we were like, let's sort of do the opposite of that. And let's go with a really dilapidated circus that is sort of failing and turn this idea on its head. And that's how we sort of came about with that decision.
Tell me a bit about the making of the film. Like, how long did you guys take to make it? Did you guys shoot on location at a circus? Like, how did you get all that to work?
Yeah, so it took us about a year and a half to write. And right when we were sort of ready to start fundraising and finding the money for the film, the pandemic started. So that was a lot of fun trying to navigate that and trying to find, money for an indie film with, creators that are not already, celebrities or famous in the industry. But we were able to manage eventually. And we actually had to delay the film twice because of the pandemic, which was really, really difficult and caused all sort of, reverberating issues such as, people that we had initially hired were no longer available because when you push film back, everyone's schedules sort of now, become a free for all. So it was difficult, but we finally started filming in March 2021, which was, a little delayed, but not too bad. And we filmed for 12 days. It was very, very quick. Yeah, very intense. 6 days on, 1 day off. But we had just the most amazing killer team ever. Um, and we were navigating a new world with COVID, but I think we did pretty well. No one got COVID, which was, the win for us. But we found a place called LA Circus out in Riverside. And the owner, Winnie, she's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records for owning the most like circus memorabilia. And because she used to she grew up in the circus. So she has a bunch of like this massive lot just full of stuff. And so we worked with her and we filmed on her lot for 6 days. And yeah, they've actually worked with Water for Elephants and Greatest Showman and American Horror Story and stuff. So we're now part of a big, circus family connected through her.
So when you were making this and dealing with COVID, and having to push the film, I've heard a lot of stories about this. Was
Yeah.
there ever a time when you thought, maybe this ain't gonna make it? Maybe it's next year, or maybe it's never, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Was there any loss of hope?
I mean, I definitely think it was incredibly, incredibly disheartening and disappointing and frustrating every time we had to postpone. But I think we always postponed because we didn't want to lose hope. We didn't ever want to get to a point where we would start and then stop, because I think that would have been like way harder, if we had not been able to get everything right the first time around. Like, if we were 5 days into filming and someone caught COVID and we had to shut everything down, that would have been incredibly expensive. And that could have been, you know, even more difficult, like, because I already mentioned, if you postpone, you lose people. So if we had postponed in the middle of filming, would our costume designer no longer have been able to be available when we restarted? Would that like have been even more difficult? So we were never totally out, but we were definitely like, oh man, this just really sucks. Like having to call everyone up and make those phone calls and be like, hey, like, especially the second time, like we're not doing this and we don't know when we're going to pick up again, but we tried to find that hope where but we will pick up again. Like we will be coming back and we want to get it right all at once.
What was kind of the key for you in terms of being able to navigate this, as because you're on the producer end, because it's your idea, you're working and you're developing the project and stuff, but then at some point you just have to act. So
Yeah.
like, how are you at negotiating those two different roles during production?
Like Em and I, from the beginning, were obviously working on it together and I was producing it, but we always knew that there would come a time where I would have to step back and act. And, you don't want to sort of half do any role, right? You don't want to sort of be a producer and you don't want to be sort of an actor because you're dealing with producer stuff and vice versa. So at one point, we brought on two other amazing producers, Ruby Leader and Monica O'Hara. And there came a time where I sort of just like handed it to them. And I was like, all right, like I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to be in the background. I'm still going to be overseeing stuff and being a part of everything. But I now need to sort of focus on the art, the creativity, my craft, and making sure that my performance is as amazing as it possibly can be. And they are so amazing and talented and hard workers. And it was like a no-brainer. And I felt very sort of safe and secure with them like leading the film.
It's always interesting to me because I've had those things where, I'm on set and I'm like the writer, director, producer, and, it's in one way it's great because if you can keep it small, you can kind of control everything. But at some point, you like if you're trying to concentrate, especially with acting, like you're trying to be in the scene, and you can't be worried about like who's getting lunch today, you know,
100%.
and which is
100%.
which people don't realize how important lunch is on a film set,
Yeah.
but it's like the most important thing ever. It's hard. It's a lot of people coming together at once. Sometimes you don't even know everybody on the day, and there's a lot of chaos around. But at some point, you have to try to get a good performance.
Yeah.
In order to prep for that, did you guys do a bunch of rehearsals and things like that to try to get ready?
Actually, like, no, at least for the actors, we didn't. Like, I had a rehearsal with everyone, but we got one 3 hour rehearsal. Like, so I had one 3 hour rehearsal with Dark, or with Elia, who plays Dark, my dad, one 3 hour rehearsal with the girls. But I mean, it was one of those things that when we were in casting, it was so obvious that the people that we picked knew what they were doing and that they understood the characters. And so I think we were very lucky in the sense that when we got to set, everyone sort of just got it. Like they just knew what to do, And M is a very collaborative director who is like very open to improv and stuff like that. So when we were doing scenes, like we definitely had, the scene and the dialogue and the arc or whatever, but she also like let us explore, which can always bring a lot of naturalness to a performance, So I feel like when you're seeing sort of the magic of the relationships on screen, that's kind of what you're seeing.
When you're doing these rehearsals and stuff, are you doing this all like this, or it's all via Zoom, or are you guys actually in a someplace together?
No, so at this point we were definitely like we were gonna film, there was COVID protocol out now. There had been a couple of film movies that had already been filming, so we sort of knew like what to do, masks, social distancing, testing, all that kind of stuff. So we had a little rehearsal space and we were able to all get together and we were separated in our own chairs in our own space. We had face shields so that we could actually see what each other looked like, which is, a challenge all its own to kind of perform with those on. But it was great. There were no problems. It was a lot of fun. It was finally great to be able to see each other in person. But we did do all the casting and callbacks through Zoom, which I always commend the actors on because it's very difficult to sort of try to sometimes capture the essence of a performance like this.
It's funny because I've auditioned actors before, and it's my least favorite part of doing any of this stuff. I like casting to me is like torture. It's great to meet all these different people, but one thing that I found with the self tapes and things like that, and people taping at home, it's so much easier to cast for film and television because you have to see people on camera anyway.
Yeah.
And at sooner or later, because I don't know if you've ever had this experience where like you were talking to somebody in the room and there's great chemistry and you really like the person and they seem to be great, and then you look at the tape and you're like, oh, that's not really great at all. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
they're really kind of flat on camera.
Yeah.
And then you have those experiences where it's the opposite, where you feel like, oh, yeah, that guy was okay, he's all right, and then you see the what's on camera and you go, oh wow, okay, this guy gets it.
100%. Yeah. We were able to start with self tapes, which is, I mean, it's so great with the convenience, especially during the pandemic, and um, you can eliminate very easily. I mean, you can just sort of run through them. You can see how people look, you can hear how they sound, and you can really narrow down and kind of, definitely get that essence on a nicer camera, and then sort of have that great next step of being able to be on Zoom and have a more personal interaction. But it was always definitely frustrating when you would have like technical issues, and I always felt bad for actors because I've definitely, I still audition through the pandemic, and you get on a Zoom, and, if you freeze in the middle of reading a scene, it's always, it's always really awkward, and, or like having to exit and come back in. But, so there's pros and cons, but it's definitely been, not all hope is lost about how to continue in the industry with the pandemic going on.
I've worked on a few films since since COVID hit, and some of them are my own projects and some of the bigger projects. And like you were talking about working in face shields with masks on and all that stuff. It is very, you feel a little bit like an astronaut,
Yeah.
like you're just kind of like in space and you just want to be able to talk to people. And it's
Yeah.
so it's I was just on a shoot, and I was doing behind the scenes photography, and they asked me if I wanted to jump into a scene, and I'm like, yeah, sure, fine. And then I realized they didn't know what I looked like yet. And so I was like,
Yeah.
because I was covered from, I was like, I could be hideous from here down. Do you want to like see my face before you cast me in this movie?
Right.
And they're like, yeah, yeah, sure, and I did. I think I just, you see my back anyway, but like, it's that type of weirdness, and then you can't remember what anybody kind of looks like, and it's very hard to recognize people's faces. You say hello to the same person, you're like, do I know that person? Did I, like
Yeah.
it's still very, very weird. I mean, maybe there'll be a day when we're not doing that, sometime soon, but
I don't
it's an
know.
like making movies isn't hard enough.
Right, right. Or expensive enough even, and now having to add like a whole new section just for COVID, which was also a challenge of ours. Is like, you think you figured out the budget, you figured out how much everything's going to cost, and then now you have to go back in and rework everything. M even had to go back in and like edit scenes or cut out characters because you're trying to cut down on how many people are going to be on set, so therefore cutting down on spreading, or how many people can be in a room together. And it's just, it's very surreal when it feels normal now, like in the sense that you're used to that this is how it is. But every time I have like a conversation like this where I have to like go back and like rehash the changes that we made, I'm like, wow, that was really crazy at the moment.
It's going to be weird when it's back to normal too. If it ever like, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know about you, but living in New York City, we were kind of like in the epicenter of the disease for a while. And,
Yeah.
if I see two people without masks hug, I start to have a little mini panic attack,
Right.
and, and on sets, it's kind of like, it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be a transition either way. But like, I do think it really does force you, like you said, like, hey, what do we really need for this story? You know, like
Right.
what do we need to, like, oh, you know what? Grandpa doesn't need to be in this movie, so, cut out
Right.
grandpa,
A
kind of
hundred
thing.
percent.
It really drains on the independent budget.
Well, testing too. Yeah. Testing is expensive. And especially, when as the main character, I was the person like almost never wearing a mask because you're performing and stuff. So I was getting tested all the time because I was just, walking out and about, and that stuff adds up over time. So yeah, I don't know. It's a new world. It really is.
So right now, you're in your festival run. You guys just did
Yeah.
Brooklyn. What's kind of the plan for the movie going forward, and what do you see happening?
Crazy enough, we're only halfway through the year, and we're still getting acceptances every month. So we're very proud of our festival run. Um, we have gotten, we haven't announced them all, but we've gotten into over 10 festivals, and we're winning awards, and we're just like super proud and super lucky, and just, you never know how an indie film is going to do. You really don't. You hope and you try your best, but you don't know. So we're very, very happy with how well it's doing. And we're also lucky to say that we're talking to distributors right now. We've had a couple of offers for distribution. So that's kind of next. Once the festival run is over, we'll be releasing Balloon Animal. And it just sort of depends on where we go or who we go with. So that's very exciting.
Do you see it getting a theatrical run, or do you see it going right to streaming?
That's the other thing with indie filmmaking. You don't know if, we're realistic. We understand, where the movie stands, and that we don't necessarily have the most famous people in it. Um, but we think it's a good film. We know it's a good film. It's a great film. It's a lovely film, and it's really resonating with people, and it's getting out there, and we think it um, has a place with a theatrical release. Whether that is with a distributor or whether we try and go at it ourselves, that's to be seen. But sky's the limit is kind of how we always think.
Congratulations on all the success that you've had, so far, and I wish you luck with it. Distribution is its own, like there's it's so hard to just make the movie, and then
Right.
when it comes to like distributing the movie and marketing the movie, and then at some point they're going to ask you for a bunch of deliverables that you're going to have to pay
Yeah.
for, and that's like a whole other budget. It kind of feels like like, oh, I just ran this marathon, and someone goes, hey, wait a minute, you got another one you
Part
got to
two,
run,
yeah.
and it's and if you don't, nobody will see the movie, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I wish you luck with all that stuff, and I hope you have good people on that end that are protecting
Yeah.
your interests. What is up next for you? What do you got going on? What do you see on the horizon?
M is currently writing our next film. Um, but we are also oh, I forgot what that's called, but oh, we're soliciting material as well. We are open to reading other people's scripts. We're constantly on the lookout. Writing takes time, and you never kind of want to rush or pressure the process. So, whether it's the film she's writing right now or whether we read someone else's script and we're like, wow, this is amazing and this is for us. Um, that's what we'll do next, but we're definitely ready and rearing to go. And we do love filmmaking, as challenging as it can be, and we think we're pretty good at it, so we are eager to go to the next project.
If someone wants to learn more about you, about the film, where can they find you guys online?
Can find us on Instagram. I her Emma's Instagram is got Emma, so at got Emma, kind of like got milk. And then I am Cat G period Waddell. That's our Instagram. We also have our website, First Bloom Films. We own the production company that made Balloon Animal. And then we also have balloonanimalthefilm.com, where you can learn more about us. We're constantly posting and updating. We're very active. We respond to DMs, we respond to emails. So just come and chit chat with us if you want to learn more, or check out our websites.
Thank you so much for
Okay.
being here. I appreciate it. And thank you all out there for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content, including our movie reviews, visit our website, no rest for the weekend podcast.com. Don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And now you can subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/get behind the rabbit. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Katherine Waddell, and our sponsor, JMR Rentals. For Behind the Rabbit Productions, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.